what has happened here is the discovery of serious crimes against the law of Kenya and against international law. It's not a small matter. It's a grave matter. And therefore, I know the country is in deep pain and shock. The rest of the world is in solidarity with the people of Kenya for what has happened here in Kilifi. The process which I've come here to witness has involved exhumation of some of the bodies or all the bodies that could be in this property after the court gave orders that the exhumation proceed. I am informed by those who are responsible that until now, over and above the figure that was given yesterday, which was at 73, we have been able to discover until this hour another 16 bodies, bringing the total to 89. And this is as at now. The process continues for the rest of the day, and we don't know how many more graves, how many more bodies we are likely to discover. Up to now, we have also rescued quite a number of people, including 3 who have been rescued today, this morning. And I think the figure now is around 34 of those who have been rescued alive. And we thank God for saving the lives of those dear ones, and we pray that God will help them to go through the trauma, to recover and tell the story of how one time a fellow Kenyan, a fellow human, decided to hurt so many people heartlessly, hiding under the Holy Scriptures, purporting and pretending to be a follower of one who killed nobody, and instead of killing anybody, actually, on the contrary, he died for the salvation of the world. So it's very hurting that somebody hiding behind Scripture and the Bible has caused us this kind of damage. We are following a number of leads, and I want to assure the people of Kenya and the world that we will do whatever it takes to get to the bottom of this matter and establish the truth. The government has nothing to hide. We will ensure that we get to the bottom of this matter and establish the whole truth about what happened. As I've said, this is a clear example of misuse of the fundamental right to the freedom of worship and of religion, which is guaranteed by the Constitution of our country and the laws of our country. The purported use of the Bible to kill people, to cause widespread massacre of innocent civilians, cannot be tolerated under any law on earth and even outside this world. It cannot be tolerated. Those who urged others to fast and die were eating and drinking. They were purporting that they are preparing them to meet the Creator. Yet the said Creator fed people whenever he found them hungry. I would like to say that Mr. Paul Mackenzie and all his collaborators has a date with destiny. It is true that by the time the law caught up with him, he had already caused a lot of harm. That it is true. But for the lives lost and the hurt and pain he has inflicted on the nation and humanity at large, he will pay dearly. The government of Kenya will do whatever it takes to make sure that we convict Mr. Mackenzie and all those who helped him perpetrate his heinous crimes, that they pay with the severest and most painful punishment available. And therefore, we do not expect that Mr. Mackenzie will get out of jail for the rest of his life. As we reflect on what has happened in our country, it is now clear that religious extremism is as dangerous as the acts of terror and other dangerous people and criminals that we are dealing with in other parts of the country. I am now convinced beyond doubt that religious extremism is now part of the greatest 5 threats that we face as a country. And this opportunity, sad as it is, must help us fix and arrest the problem from ever occurring on the soil of our country ever again. Other countries have had similar experiences. This is not unique for Kenya. In 1978, about 900 American citizens lost their lives. Again, owing to the perverted teachings of a fellow called Johnston, who had a cult called the People's Temple, which was based in San Francisco. And he convinced, lured and brainwashed 900 American citizens to take poison and die because, according to him, the world was coming to an end. America has never recovered from the Johnston massacre of 1978. But that event reshaped how Americans take national security, especially when dealing with extreme threats like terrorism and religious extremism. In 1995, another cult in Japan applied chemical gas on the Tokyo subway and killed over a dozen people. Again, following cultism and perverted religious beliefs of a group calling itself the Supreme Truth, or Aum Shinrikyo. That was in 1995. After that event, Japan has never been the same again. What am I trying to say? I am convinced beyond doubt that what has happened here in Shakahola is the turning point for how Kenya handles serious threats to security posed by religious extremism. Therefore, the government admits that this should not have happened. But the government, which I represent here, wants to assure the nation of Kenya that nothing like this again will happen. It won't happen. I know it is very easy to start pointing fingers. The same way when Americans were attacked in 9/11 by terrorists, there was a lot of finger pointing. I want to dissuade us as a country to rally ourselves together. And instead of pointing fingers, first and foremost, we must do whatever it takes and save any living among us who could be under the custody of these terrorists, whether in this property or elsewhere in this country. We must rally ourselves and make sure that we save lives and that there is no further loss of lives from this kind of dangerous criminality. For Mr. Mackenzie and all the people who helped him get away with this kind of barbarism, we are exploring all the legal books available. And let me at this juncture say I was impressed by the Director of Criminal Investigations and the Director of Public Prosecutions, who were here together with the Inspector General of Police. And when they visited this scene, I was happy not only at the seriousness in which our agencies have taken up this matter at the highest level, but also I was glad to hear the Director of Public Prosecution saying that he is exploring charging Mr. Mackenzie and his group with terrorism. And I want to encourage the Director of Public Prosecution that it is not far-fetched to build a case of terrorism from what we have witnessed so far from this scene of crime. It is not impossible. In fact, over and above terrorism, I am convinced beyond doubt that a case can be built for charging Mr. Mackenzie and all his collaborators, including those who helped him to dig graves and dispose bodies who have been murdered. It is possible to charge them with a crime of genocide under international and Kenyan law, for the following reason: that Article 2 of the Convention of 1948 on the prevention and punishment of the crime of genocide defines genocide as any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a racial, national, ethnic, or religious group. I repeat, Article 2 of the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide of 1948, and which Kenya is a signatory and a party to, defines genocide in the following words: it is any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part any of the following groups, namely a racial group, a national group, ethnic group, or a religious group. And then it goes on to list those acts: acts of murder, acts of preventing such groups from giving birth, and there's a list of about 8 or 9 elements. And since Mr. Mackenzie and his group have murdered so many Kenyans at once, men, women, and children, and since Mr. Mackenzie allegedly uses religion to commit these atrocities, it is very easy to fit this behavior within the definition of Article 2 of the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, which is now part of the law of Kenya by virtue of Article 2.5 of the Constitution, as well as the International Crimes Act number 16 of 2008, which actually transfers the definition, elements, and punishment of genocide into local crimes. I therefore want to encourage the Director of Public Prosecution, the DCI and the other agencies to be innovative, because we must find the most punishable, the most painful punishment for Mr. Mackenzie and his group. I would like to say that secondly, we have widened the net. Even as this activity goes on here, we have cast the net wide to make sure we net and bring to book all associates, collaborators, and other partners of the evil Mr. Mackenzie. And as I speak, we have opened a formal inquiry on one of the religious organizations also based here in Malindi. And already we are getting crucial leads that perhaps what Mr. Mackenzie was doing could just be a tip in the iceberg. We have widened the net, not just in Malindi, across the country, because as I have said, this is an event like no other. And this must help us to turn this corner and make sure that we don't have a repeat of this kind of atrocity ever again. Number 3, we would like to upscale what is happening in terms of trying to establish the truth. And in that connection, effective today, we have upscaled, or we want to upscale the ongoing rescue activities around this property. And we are setting up a multi-agency search and rescue operation, which must commence from tomorrow morning. This multi-agency search and rescue operation will involve all the agencies involved, but of course, because of the grave nature of this matter, it will be security-led. It will be led by our security agents, but we will be having other partners, both from government, even non-governmental entities that can help us with trying to save any lives that we can save. Because we have information that within this property, we could still have other victims of Mr. Mackenzie's demonic teachings who are struggling with life and who could be under the supervision of Mr. Mackenzie's supporters in their quest to make sure that they kill a little more people. So we are moving swiftly with immediate effect to ensure that we upscale the search and rescue mission, and we are going to increase the personnel and the agencies involved. More details will be communicated in due course. For the time being, other than information coming from the headquarters in Nairobi, all official communication about the progress we are making in this matter will be relayed by the regional commissioner for the Coast region, Rhoda Onyancha, on behalf of all the government teams from the region, from the county, from the sub-county, and those that have come here. Otherwise, we believe that we need to prioritize search and rescue, and the multi-agency effort will be put in place with immediate effect. And once that multi-agency search and rescue starts working, it will also have its own leadership and command, so that we have a centralized and formal way of communicating. Because as I said at the beginning of this address, the government of Kenya has nothing, and I repeat, nothing to hide. We are all shocked We are ashamed that this has happened on our soil. But as I said again, we want to make sure that it doesn't occur again. It is inevitable that we are going to tighten the regulations and the laws of our country, carefully following the Bill of Rights and the guarantees on the freedom of worship and of religion, conscience, and association, but balancing those rights with the sacred duty of the government and the laws of our country to ensure that everybody, every member of the public in Kenya is safe. And for that reason, we must review and ask ourselves if anybody, anywhere, anyhow, can preach anything. We must answer that question as a country. There are no two ways about it. We must respond to the question whether anybody, anywhere, anyhow, can preach anything. Any preacher, imam, rabbi, bishop, or whatever leadership name they are called, who preaches any gospel or message that is against the Constitution of Kenya, that is against international law, and any preacher of any faith who kills people or engages in criminal activities in the name of religion must be stopped. And this is the time to stop this kind of charlatans and dangerous criminals from our midst. We are going to ask religious organizations to help us on how to regulate themselves. So we expect self-regulation proposals from faith organizations, but also the government of Kenya will also come up with other regulations also just to oversee and make sure that there is no excuse for people using religion to commit crime. I also want to announce that this process is painful and slow for obvious reasons, because this is a forensic exercise. It's not just a physical activity. And therefore, procedures must be followed to preserve evidence and also to assist us in scientifically establishing the truth in terms of the departed source. I therefore call upon the patience of the people of Kenya, families who are in anguish because they don't know part of, maybe they are not sure whether their relatives could be part of this outcome. We plead for the patience of everybody so that the process is done properly, scientifically, and within the law. I commend the teams who are working under very difficult circumstances, and I want to assure every officer of government working here from all agencies, every volunteer from the private sector, from the community, the political leadership, members of the press, everybody, NGOs, the President and the government of Kenya recognizes your standing in solidarity with the country at a painful moment like this one. There will be accountability. All said and done, there will be accountability. Therefore, even as we continue with this court-ordered process of exhumation, even as we continue to look for the severest punishment to mete out on these perpetrators, even as we continue with the search and rescue, even as we continue with tightening the regulations to make sure that criminals don't use religion to cause death and havoc, there must be accountability. there must be accountability. And that time must come. That time must come. In view of the gravity of this matter, the widespread nature of the atrocity, the government will be announcing further far-reaching measures in the next few days. Thank you, and God bless Kenya.